everybody, this is Talkative Carl back again for more X-Men related content, and today I'll be reviewing a Mystique solo story. There's quite a few, but this one actually has like a significant story. Before we get into it, please like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. Hit the notification bell so you know whenever I am posting new content. YouTube.com/TalkativeCarl. You can also follow me on my Twitch, where I stream live, including playing games such as FF16 more recently. And subscribe to my Patreon, patreon.com/TalkativeCarl. And you can follow me on Twitter, is where I usually be at. And of course, Instagram. All the links are in the description below, whether you're watching this on live on Twitch or later on YouTube. And it took a hot minute because it's like 24 issues of this story, written by Brian K. Vaughan, art by Jorge Lucas. This is like, a handful of arcs here, and it's very like spy centered type of stories here. It's very 007-ish, which is kind of ideal for somebody like Raven Darkholme, aka Mystique. But like in the previous solo character stories, I want to go over Mystique's abilities. Of course, I try to look up and see, like, okay, what was her actual birth? Who was her parents? That is never addressed at all after all these years. The earliest known her life was what was it, like it was somewhere around the end of the 19th century. It's like her earliest known upbringing before her powers manifested. But Mystique is a metamorph, can psionically alter the formation of her biological cells at will. As a result, she can cause herself to look and sound like an exact duplicate of any human, humanoid, or semi-human being of any sex, wearing virtually any kind of clothing. Speaking of which, reading through this story, you learn quite a bit about Mystique. Like, I think the first 3 X-Men movies pretty much nailed down Mystique, because we made jokes about why, like, she had to be naked in like the films, but Mystique is always naked. That little iconic white outfit that you normally see her wear, that is not technically clothes. That's still a part of her body. She's still technically naked. She can actually form, certain, things like clothing or even glasses sometimes. As you see, if you read this story, you learn quite a bit. And also, fun fact, while she's trying to, even though she can mimic people's voices, the person she want to copy, they actually have to say at bare minimum 10 syllables for her to be able to copy effectively. Her control is so exact that she can precisely duplicate another person's retina pattern in her own eyes, finger, palm, and skin pore patterns on her own hands and skin. Smell to overlap the original being, and vocal cords to match voices to the point of corresponding voice prints. And Mystique is technically immortal because of her physiology. Can't even speak. Her physical makeup. According to Wakandan files, Mystique appears to have total control over every aspect of her physiology. allowing her to change the internal composition, primary function, and pigmentation of each of her body cells. Mystique was once exposed to dangerous levels of radiation in order to save the life of Toad. The process dramatically morphed Mystique's appearance, causing her skin to become reptilian and boost her powers so that she could now morph her body into taking certain desired physical traits depending on her situation at the time. Note, this reptilian form was quickly discarded, whether it was because of retcon or if it simply shifted back to her previous form remains to be seen. Examples of this new ability include night vision, wings on her back, talons in her fingers, sharp fang teeth, natural body armor, mermaid-like tail. As you see, a couple of these in this adventure. And she could even compress into a nearly two-dimensional state to glide on air currents, similar to Mr. Fantastic, which she used to survive an explosion, which happened in this adventure. Since her resurrection by the Hand, her powers have been enhanced to a higher level than they were before, to the degree that she could fool superhumanly acute senses, such as Wolverine's sense of smell, something she couldn't do before her death. Other new facets of these abilities include tentacle generation, animal shifting, and partial liquefaction, or liquefaction. Metamorphic adaptation. After her first enhancement, Mystique showed the ability to adapt her body depending on her situation at the time. She was able to camouflage her body to match her surroundings so well as to be invisible, shift her organs into her lower extremities, and mimic the textures of glass or metals when she took on the form of Magneto and his helmet. She could conceal items in shape-shifted pouches inside her body, and clearly stated that she was always naked and simply made her skin look and feel like other materials to fool others. Enhanced physical attributes, strength, speed, agility, durability, reflexes, senses. Accelerated healing. Mystique's nature allows her to repair wounds, regrow limbs, and regenerate herself from minor to near-death injuries in a short span of time, much faster than an ordinary human. She is capable of retaining a mimic form even when drugged or knocked unconscious. Toxins and disease resistance. She is capable of quickly developing resistance and immunity to toxins and diseases. Decelerated aging. Raven's metamorphic powers have staved off the degenerative effects of aging. She has always had this ability even before her enhancement. She is over 100 years old. Psychic defense. Mystique's nature also provides her with a natural defense against telepathic intrusion. And by the way, I got my window cracked a little bit because it's kind of warm, so if you hear noises outside, bear with me. Nick Fury's intel classified her as power level 8, while the one stated that she was a severe threat. According to Prosh, her comparative immunogenic power register was that of 8.3. Master martial artist. Her skills rival those of Black Widow and Captain America. Trained actress, expert marksman, multilingual. She grew up Austrian, just so you guys know. Little fun fact. German and English, and a fluency in Spanish, Portuguese, French, Farsi, Korean, Swedish, and Czech. Covert operative. Weaknesses. Appearance limitation. Originally, it was clearly stated that Mystique's powers were limited to appearances only. She could not assume the powers of the people she morphed into or alter her body to adapt to different situations. Although Mystique's powers were enhanced, Mystique could never duplicate the powers of other superhumans and still cannot duplicate the powers of the person she imitates. For example, when she turns herself into a duplicate of Nightcrawler, she did not gain the ability to teleport. However, she can use her powers to mimic the powers of others, such as assuming the form of Sabretooth, then using her powers to enhance her senses, strength, speed, agility, and of course natural heal at the accelerated rate. Unchangeable body mass. While she can make herself look exactly like a person who is physically bigger than herself, she will not weigh as much as the real person does. As such, she will be considerably weaker than the true person she copies, as evidenced by her form of an imposter Sabretooth, where her powers were less effective than the genuine Sabretooth. Also, the longer she takes a form of someone with greater mass, the greater a strain on her body, which could reach a breaking point where she is forced to turn back into her normal self. Since her enhancement, Mystique has stated that her body mass now changes when she does, although the truth, as with everything concerning Raven, remains shrouded. Schizophrenia formerly, not going to delve into that since it's not a thing anymore. Equipment, she has used experimental weaponry devices, including a power trainer that disabled Iron Man, nanotech capable of fooling Cerebral and related tech. Weapons, conventional firearms, and an energy beam pistol, various skull-shaped explosives usually carried on her belt. Oh, so those are actually explosives. It's not a decorative thing. Trivia. Contrary to what is shown in most of her incarnations of her in film and television, and the comics version of Mystique is not Magneto's second in command. In fact, before Uncanny X-Men Volume 4, the two only had a handful of encounters together and barely even knew each other. One depiction of her being an associate of Magneto was the X-Men arcade game by Konami, where she turns herself into Magneto to prevent the players from rescuing Professor X and has all his powers, but is defeated fairly quickly. Veteran X-Men writer Chris Claremont has stated in interviews that he originally intended for Mystique and Destiny to be Nightcrawler's biological parents, Mystique having morphed into a man for the conception. But Marvel nixed the idea for being too controversial, due to being a point in time where writers were prevented from having a gay or bisexual character. In celebration of Marvel Comics' 80th anniversary, Mystique, along with Dark Phoenix and Storm, were featured in a special line of Barbie fashion dolls, which is kind of funny because of the recent Barbie movie. Mystique was once married to Deadpool, and she has, at least a handful of relationships in the past. She currently is married to Destiny, the precog that you normally see in X-Men TV shows like X-Men Evolution, for example. Of course, they never really delved into it back then, but she and Mystique, are in a serious relationship, probably the most serious relationship she ever had, in her long life, and probably truly loves her above, if she loved anybody. And she, to an extent, loved her children, too, because she adopted Rogue, she birthed... Well, she doesn't love Brandon Creed, because that's the son, she had with... Probably the earliest kids she had with somebody with Victor Creed, Sabretooth, and more than likely because he didn't manifest any mutant powers, which is always kind of like a crapshoot. Even if two mutants conceive a kid together, it doesn't always mean, it's fairly rare, I'd probably be more accurate, that two mutants don't birth a mutant in the future. But then of course she had a relationship with Wolverine, Christian Wagner, who Kurt took the last name for, but his actual father is Exazel, and it was a one-night stand. Sabretooth, like I said, Forge in this story, brings that up about having a serious relationship with him. A senator, Ralph Brickman, a guy named Shepard, just a kiss. Phantomex, which is also a character that shows up here, on again, off again, casual relationship. She had a serious relationship with Iceman before, and a brief relationship with Wolverine's kid, Daken, which is kind of awkward as hell. Whereas, like, not only you banged the father a long time ago, yes, before the kid even existed, but then later on, you end up banging his son down the line, it's kind of like really effed up. It's like Mystique, you know, there's certain things with Mystique where she has like zero boundaries. Anyway, now we covered her abilities. Let's get on to the story. Now, like I said, like a good espionage type of flick, we are witnessing this spy working under Xavier. Her name is Prudence, a mutant, who has the ability to transfer her consciousness to only females that she lays eyes on. She can't do this with a man, which still makes her a very effective operative. But while stopping a plot, you know, on one particular mission, she gets cornered by this guy named Steinbeck, who's also a mutant with pyrokinetic powers, but he is a terrorist in his own right, where he sells weapons of mass destruction to the highest bidder. He has no allegiances whatsoever, and he ends up killing Prudence, which gets back to Xavier, who at this point in time is setting up the whole situation with Genosha. Mutants are more frequent and out there, not in hiding anymore, and he can walk at this point in time. I can't remember what was the situation that allowed him to walk in this point in time, but he's walking now. They kind of, I won't say next to, you know, but it's just like after the whole situation with House of X and Powers of X, that is all like, you know, his needing of a floating wheelchair is no more, or just a wheelchair in general. But in this moment, because this is like what, 2004 when this story came out, and Mystique, and Professor Xavier is walking, and I gotta say, like, this is part of all the stuff that I was going through with the reviews with all the X-Men TV shows, movies, and these comic books so far. This is probably the most irritated I've been with Charles Xavier, and I've been like going to bat for him for many of these videos. Like, you know, people judge him so harshly and call him a villain and blah 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 for certain decisions he makes that you not necessarily agree with. But here he behaves kind of like a dick to Raven, but you get his point of view because up to this point, Raven has been a villain and on rare occasions anti-hero, and you can never trust Mystique. She always got, you know, an angle that she's trying to work, and she only, you know, trusts herself. Through this adventure, you'll see that she does, you know, some bit of heroic stuff here and there, and she has some level of morality, but it reaches more so for mutants, because she's like a mutant, you know, liberator, if be like a proper term, I guess. So Xavier goes to Forge, who had a previous relationship with Mystique, and they're trying to figure out how to find her, because now that at this point in time the X-Men are like public heroes, and like with relationships with mutant kind and humanity are okay, but still, like, you don't want to rock that boat. You're like, Xavier see like the light at the end of the tunnel for mutant kind, and it's like you can see like why he's like, you know, edgy with Mystique, because you know she can like easily foul all that up. But he needs her for this particular operation when in regards of, you know, espionage. He needs like an expert. So Mystique while on an assignment, gets busted, and this guy from Department of Homeland Security, Kirito, something like that, who's also a mutant working for the government, who has, like, electric powers, just have it out for Mystique. So he personally taken upon himself to, like, lay down the execution of Raven Darkholme. That wasn't until then, was seemingly to be Magneto, who is supposed to be dead at this point, breaks in and breaks out Raven, and it turns out to be Xavier in disguise, using his mental powers to simulate metal being crushed and everything like that. So he and Forge set up this device where it pretty much keeps Raven blocked from, it's kind of like a firewall to keep, like, Homeland Security and all these governments like Interpol from finding her. And so Raven's pretty much in their custody at this point to do, it's kind of, think of it kind of like, Amanda Waller with the Suicide Squad, only without the whole bomb in the brain. Whereas, like, okay, you and me working for us, and to do what we need you to do for the betterment of mutant and humankind. And if you don't do as we say, we will destroy this thing. Homeland Security will know immediately where you are, and they will do, you're on your own at this point. Because they won't kill her, because that's not what the X-Men do. They don't just flat out just assassinate or whatever. But that's not the kind of thing Raven does. That's not the play, but she plays it. But knowing that she's, stuck between a rock and a hard place, he decides, okay, like, I'll play along. So they need her to infiltrate, like, go to Cuba to meet her handler, which is another mutant named Shortpack, who's just kind of like, not Ant-Man size, but like at least like a size of an action figure. It's kind of like a drawback of his mutant ability, where it's like he started to shrink, but he has like a short range telepathy where he has to be within like at least maybe 12 meters away from the person to be able to go inside their head to communicate. And he was Brutus's handler. And now, since she's died, they needed this mission complete, because at this point, Fidel Castro, who was alive at this time, with like the rise of mutants around the globe, there's a possibility, because he has like kind of, as a dictator, he's kind of have that kind of paranoia, like any one of these mutants could feel the need to usurp me. So he ends up buying on the black market from Steinbeck Russian-made Sentinels to set up in Cuba's backyard in order to be like a deterrent in case like any one of these mutants get any kind of bright ideas. He can just dispatch Sentinels immediately and just lay waste to any number of mutants to just quell any type of rebellion against his rule. So Mystique has to go there and utilize this kind of Game Boy Advance, that because Forge is pretty much like her Q at this point, her quartermaster. And man, you talking about like, like a what do you call those, time capsules. He reconfigured a Game Boy Advance to be able to electrically neutralize the sentinels they have, Castro has in his facility. So she meets with Short Pack, and the driver who was supposed to be working with Short Pack realizes, puts a gun on them. It's like, sorry, Short Pack, but she works a lot of money. And of course, Raven quickly, knocks that guy out. It's like, it's very rare the amount of people can actually pose a considerable threat to Mystique. How, especially how very skilled she is. There's actually very little you can catch Mystique by surprise with. So, taking on the appearance of a beautiful woman, she monitors this protest against Castro and his forces for, because there's been like mutant children who've been kidnapped by this general that Mystique needs to capture in order to get some information in order to get inside that facility, which she does. And when she is like literally close enough where she can actually taste it, here comes some of the people who was protesting earlier come bursting in to as like, insurgents in order to liberate their friend and family members who are children, mind you, who manifested their mutant abilities. This kind of irritates Mystique to the degree because, like, God, you pick a wrong time right now to start rising up. So Mystique trank darts, a bunch of the soldiers, and of course she's using trank weapons, not lethal weapons, because Xavier does not want her to kill. While she's under his like thumb, she will not, take a life under his watch. If you're wondering why Xavier did not choose somebody like Wolverine or somebody who's, just as skilled in espionage, well, like I said, X-Men's in the public faces. He needed somebody that is technically expendable, as Raven pointed out. Like, hey, I'm the bad girl, so of course, I'm expendable. I'm not one of your little X-Men. So you can lose me, and you won't lose any sleep over it. Which I kind of feel like, I think this is like very bogus of Xavier. Yes, I understand though. Mystique has done some very nefarious stuff in the past, and she would do more so later on in the future. And of course, Xavier doesn't have to trust her or whatever like that. But you still need to treat her with a bit of decency, especially after first couple of missions she goes on. You'll think he'll be like a little warmer towards her, but he's so focused on making sure nothing rocks this potentially peaceful boat for mutants that I guess he ain't tolerating, ironically, Raven Darkholme or any of her mess. And this is, I wanted to show this kind of a panel where like Raven can actually just utilize her morphing ability to just make herself like to almost anything. So she makes herself like a two-faced, four-armed beast chick, and it willing like in AR-15s and just like going ham on a bunch of soldiers. But as I rated through her bio, when she do something like that that's beyond her limit, physical limit, it completely like tires her out, and she kind of snaps back into her, proper form. And since the Sentinels appear to be controlled by this one central computer, turns out to be one of the leader, insurgents' little sister, who has the mutant ability of controlling technology. While, once she got, everything was just like, it's like she can't turn it off, because the way her mutant ability triggers is when like she's like mentally kind of like going through like you mentally singing something. It's like she can't turn it off. She can't, like, even when she stops singing in her head, it's kind of like it doesn't stop the Sentinels. So they're activated, and the only way to stop them is to kill her, shut off her brain, essentially. And so the brother shows up and takes the shot instead of Raven, because like family should be the one to do this. And of course, they're completely grateful that they, Raven helped save the children and stop the Sentinels. And they want to like, fight for us. We can stop like Castro and these men. It's like, I got other priorities. Can't help you. But it also shows that Mystique, like I said, has some level of a line. But of course, Raven will not murder children. That's where she definitely draws the line at. And more especially the ones that she kind of can't help but see herself in, because she spared the life of this seemingly prostitute who turns out to be some very green kind of field agent or some kind of spy, and told her like, look, this is not, you're not cut out for this. Get out of here. You got made too easily, and you could have easily been killed. So get out of here. That kind of thing. You see like moments of like understanding, and she wasn't even a mutant, so it's like she has some level of empathy. She's not like Sabretooth or Carnage. She's like, I'm not out there just for the sake of the kill. If somebody mess with me, I will not hesitate, kind of situation. Or if there's a potential target, I will not hesitate, under except for maybe some rare exceptions. So while she's trying to enjoy it, like some night out after that kind of mission, she is introduced. Some dude introduced himself as crap. What's this guy's name? You want to say Benny? The name escapes me, but it's not here. But this guy shows up with a necklace for Raven, who he immediately knows is Raven despite the disguise. And he's working for an employer that needs Raven's services, even though they know she's working under Xavier. But he just tells her, look, just talking to this little necklace, I will come, but for right now, we'll see you later, but we'll come back for a particular task. And in return, we'll help you get out of under the thumb of Xavier. On the next mission, there, Shortpack and Mystique are in North Korea, and it turns out that there's this scientist who essentially created this kind of like a different, like a bigger strain of smallpox that equally affects mutants as well as humans, especially if they haven't been inoculated for smallpox in their young age. So she's tasked to go to Johannesburg in order to find the scientists and this, virus. So they both, well, not both, but the virus can be eliminated and this guy can be brought to justice. What's this guy's name? Shepard, yeah. This guy is Shepard, who comes to her and says like, "Hey, we know you're on your little excursion for Xavier, so we know about that whole virus thing. Why don't you give us a piece of that once your mission is done, but before you go to Xavier?" And she like want to know like, okay, what's going on? What's in it for you guys? But he's of course not telling yet. Not even the identity of this employer whose name is the Quiet Man. Then, of course, because there's, of course, you're dealing with the X-Men. Of course, you gotta also deal with like bigotry and all its facets, as a matter of fact, and even some bigotry that Raven holds against certain, well, not certain, just humans in general. Well, she meeting this cabbie who turns out to be a complete, not only a racist against mutants, but also against black people. And this kind of disgusts Raven, because even she pointed out like, black people, are struggling because of people like you who put them in, horrible situations a long time ago. And then she morphs into this big black guy. Don't you know if you can call it blackface if Mystique's natural skin tone is blue? So it's kind of like, I don't even know if you want to count that, because she's well known to be morphing. It's like, why wouldn't she turn to a black person at one point or another, or an Asian person, or whatever? It's not to the same degree as like an actual white person, wearing black makeup. You know what I mean? But she turns into this big black guy, beats the hell out of this racist dude, and she says this line like, "All men are created equal." Equally annoying or something or other, because she just has this thing against human as a whole, not for any distinct race. But later on in the story as a whole of the 24 issues, Forge constantly points out about her bigotry. And of course, you also learn that Mystique has a love for the writings of Oscar Wilde. And Forge points out, like, I find it very hypocritical that you have this whole disdain against humanity, but your favorite author is a human. And she points out that, well, your favorite writer is a German. That doesn't make you a Nazi, does it? But it's just like a it's like a unique thing you can like really pick apart when reading the story. It's like somebody like Mystique or even like Magneto has to confront their own kind of bigotry in a way, even if it's not like the normal standard of bigotry. It's her own form of bigotry against humanity as a whole, where it's like not all humans are wicked against mutants, but you paint them in a very broad brush, which is not fair. And I think it was Forge, who points out to her, well, it's like, uh, just because, there's a few even mutants out in the world does not mean we all are the Brotherhood. So Short Pack, pulls up, starts the briefing on the scientist. So lays out the blueprints of the mansion that he lives in with his wife, and she infiltrates the place, takes up a disguise, of course, and it's like, this is where the panel you learn, like, Raven actually needs to hear you say at the bare minimum 10 syllables for her to properly mimic your exact vocal patterns. So I thought, like, okay, you learn a lot about Mystique here. Although you just need to hear one word, you would think, but no, you gotta have like a considerable sentence, like at least a sentence or two, just for her to gather enough what she needs to like properly mimic you. So she knocks out the wife with chlorophyll or something like that to put her to sleep, and then she's late to meet up with this scientist who is already dead from this other mutant named Host, who has the ability to essentially, which is kind of ironic given the mission, produce certain diseases or toxins towards another being. And of course, it's like a funny little fight between Mystique and Host, where they just keep calling each other like just bad names for women. It's like whore, skank, slut, bitch, cow, all that stuff. And there's like a funny little dialogue with Mystique. It's like, I'm starting to run out of synonyms. It was very funny. But then this woman just started coughing on her, and Mystique's like, "Oh, you nasty!" But then it was actually a purpose thing. It's actually like infected Mystique, but utilizing one of Forge's little gadgets, which is like a lipstick, but it actually is like a, kind of like a Spidey tracer, where she just shoots out to the target, and it's you can track her later. Luckily, her mutant ability ends up saving her. However, Forge made this, device as well to, since dealing with a virus they have to properly transport to deal with. There's a device that's supposed to last 3 minutes in case danger of getting infected. She didn't activate it here when dealing with the Host because she didn't expect her. But I find it kind of like, I wouldn't say useless, but you make a device to protect her from a virus which, even if she's infected, she can heal from. It's not as fast as Wolverine, but it's still, though, it's kind of like you kind of waste your time with that. But after a moment to recoup enough so she can get back out there, because Host is about to take this virus that she took to the airport. So catching up with her, a fight ensues where Host is distracted enough to not notice a car swinging by, and it ends up hitting her and knocking her out. And Mystique steals the containment unit. But somehow Host beats her back at her hideout and holds Strip Pack hostage if she doesn't, give back the virus. And host trying to infect Mystique again, and thanks to Mystique's quick thinking, because she already activated the shielding without anybody noticing, but she, just to get, host to, because she's having, like, strip back and her at gunpoint at this point. So just to lower host guard down, she morphs her body to look like it's covered in boils and all this other stuff. And host comes closer, trying to finish off the job, realizing, like, you don't have anything in you. And Mystique quickly gets up and knocks her out. And utilizing another weapon from Forge, where it looks like a bobby pin, but it's actually like a very effective taser. So that mission is, successful. But while on, like, some downtime, and Forge is taking Mystique to, like, a coffee shop, news report comes on where, like, a mutant child has been kidnapped, seemingly by his father. So Forge convinced Mystique to help him try to find this kid, since they're nearby and they can probably do something about it, because considering it's a mutant child, the likelihood of the local police actually putting in the effort to finding him is, less likely. So it's up to them. And so, utilizing, like, a ruse antenna, Forge puts together some kind of homing beacon towards any close friends of the father, which turns out to be a security guard, where Mystique disguises herself to try to find out where is the last location that his friend would have told him. This is the panel where I talk about Mystique's kind of, like, own bigotry against humanity, where even though her favorite writer is a human. But when they end up finding this spot that the friend had them hold up in, turns out that this kid's mutant power is to mind control only men, which is kind of ironic given the fact that Prudence not mind control but transfer her mind to only women. So this boy is pretty much like a spoiled brat, very, like, what's that Twilight episode back in the day with that kid who can bend reality and everybody's too afraid to do anything about it? That kind of thing is very much like that. And while Mystique is trying to stop the father, Forge, comes in, trying to save Mystique. But turns out the kid ends up mind controlling Forge, and him and Mystique and Forge ends up fighting, and taking advantage of the fact that Forge has a prosthetic leg, takes off the mechanical leg and beats Forge with it, and Forge in retaliation takes a robotic prosthetic arm, turns it like a repulsor blast, and shoots Mystique. But in the ensuing fight, Mystique, takes out Forge and the father and finally confronts the kid. The mind control is broken. Forge utilizes, turned his, like, prosthetic foot into like a stun gun or something, which literally looked like it freezes the kid in like a block of ice or something. So the cops eventually show up, and Forge, having some proper credentials and like a Genosha, like sovereignty kind of thing, talks with the local cops and mentions, like, bring your female officers to handle this kid, just in case he wakes up, because his power doesn't work against females. So that way they can be properly detained, and hopefully Xavier can like speak to his kid so he can properly teach his kid, you know, how to properly manage his powers and responsibility, and hopefully get him out of this kind of warped mindset, because this kid could be very dangerous with this kind of power. And yeah, this moment with Forge and Mystique having this like moment, but it just knows it's not going to work out given the, you know, the horrible stuff Mystique has done. But Forge points out that Mystique, because he changed her face so often, it was like a mighty long time since she actually seen her own reflection of her own face. And at this point in the story, Mystique shuns away. She doesn't like to look at herself, her true self. Later on, you see her kind of like getting over that hump where she's, you know, doing something that in her mind is true justice and good, and she can actually look herself in the face. Because there's a bit of humanity in Raven than she puts on, because she always puts on this kind of very tough exterior and no nonsense, you know, because she's, you know, she had to work herself and fight for the things that she needs and in order to survive, and all that built up walls over the years is hard to chip away. She lived far too long at this point to where, you know, very rare she let that kind of guard down to a very few exceptional people like Destiny, and maybe on occasion her children. But you see that, you know, when she's like home or in like a safe, well, seemingly kind of like a safe spot, wherever like that, where she can let her hair down, you can see like there's moments when that stuff kind of creeps up a bit, because she's still affected like any other normal person. She feels fear and distress and, you know, psychological problems and all these other things. Next is kind of a short mission where Mystique is in Carnival, and they're tracking this woman who turns out to be like a man going through a transition, stealing a severed hand of this dead mutant who kind of like has the ability like the Midas touch, where anything he touches turns to gold, and that still residual power in that severed hand. So Mystique is trying to chase down this guy, or sorry, woman, but realizing, you know, this person, what they're going through, because it was only early 2000s, we weren't completely there yet so far as like in terms of acceptance of the LGBTQ plus community. We were only just reaching the point of like, gay couples, you know, being allowed to just like live their life and everything like that. All this other extra stuff took, you know, almost just, probably not as long as like, you know, lesbian gay males to have like a solid relationship without it being like looked upon as, you know, less than or disgusting or whatever. And the whole AIDS epidemic and throughout the 90s, all that stuff, it was like a lot needed to be done for like, you know, liberation for like, you know, gay rights and stuff like that. The, you know, the queer, trans, you know, community, well, this is more like the trans community, you know, their term, you know, they were still struggling too, but it's just like a step-by-step process. Their stuff, you know, their liberation came a few years later. It didn't last as long as like the gay rights did for a long while, but you know, they didn't want to kind of open those doors where their acceptance came a little bit more, well, I want to say less issues, but you know what I mean. Where it's like, it wasn't. Well, I'm not from that community, but you get my drift. So it's like the gay rights took a while for people to like be openly like, like, hey, you live your life and everything like that. I'm not gonna like, gay bash you or anything like that. That struggle, like, open the doors for like the trans community to then come later with less, issues by, and less quote unquote struggles. But anyway, it turns out Shepard also got Short Pack under his thumb while trying to get Mystique to turn on Xavier. Now, I kind of skipped this part during the whole situation with the disease thing. Shepard goes to Mystique. It's like, oh, where's that disease? And of course, Mystique, after knowing what this thing can do, is like, I ain't giving you shit. But it was all a test. Just to see if like, you was willing to give it to her or not. But she passed. So now, Shepard actually wants Raven, when she got a chance to be alone with Xavier in person, because she primarily, for the exception of when Xavier physically broke her out of the Homeland Security prison, like their low rent variant of a helicarrier, that's like the first time that she actually, be in the same presence as Xavier. Since then, up until maybe like the tail end of this entire 24 issue story, she's been communicating via telepathy. And she's being recruited as a triple agent in order to, when she had the opportunity, kill Xavier for the Quiet Man. And in return, Shepard and the Quiet Man will be able to get a hold of the device to make sure that they can repurpose it in order to make sure that Raven has never been found out by the government or Interpol or anything like that. Short Pack, as of right now, you don't know why he's in cahoots with Shepard, but we'll find out about that, soon. The next mission Xavier calls Raven for is to infiltrate this pharmaceutical company in Sweden called Dharmafree, which turns out to be utilizing mutant stem cells in order to rejuvenate human faces and skin, which of course infuriates Raven. It's like, oh, you utilizing mutants as guinea pigs in order to make yourselves look good. It's not that dissimilar to how PETA feels about how some companies use animal testing for these type of various products. So at first, when Short Pack shows the female CEO of this Dharmafree, she was like, oh snap, she's good looking and everything like that. But once she impersonated this like businessman and has like a moment with her and talks with her, realizing how much of an evil, despicable human this lady is, where she is just like, so what, we use mutants as guinea pigs, hey, no harm, no foul on us. And that level of attractions kind of went out the freaking window. And like, even Short Pack was like, we can't kill her, Mystique, but trust me, I understand the feeling to want to jump in right now to like give this woman like her just desserts. So Raven knocks her out with the stun bobby pin and search the data in order to find out where these children are so they can rescue the children and then use said information to bring to the Interpol and various news outlets. But they found out where like the children are, but the data they couldn't like download it in time. And with Short Pack in tow, it's kind of funny because there's been a couple of times where like Raven had to run up some stairs and she's having a puff like, God. It's like, he was like, because the elevator shut down. It's like, oh my God. That part always kills me when I see things like that, when like a character has to run up several flights of stairs. Despite how fit they might be, it's still several flights of stairs. And she's just huffing, like buffing. It's like, Jesus Christ. But then, thanks to Short Pack distracting these two guards, where it's really made me laugh, where he infiltrated one guard's mind, and it's just like, I always loved you. It's like, what'd you say? I didn't say anything. You just said you love me. I was like, I didn't say that. What the heck is wrong with you? And then, of course, that's one hell of a distraction. That cracked me up so freaking much. Oh my God, that was my favorite panel or favorite page as a whole out of this entire story. That made me laugh so freaking hard. Oh my God, that was really good. What a way to distract somebody. But while going through the computers, Raven discovers something very disturbing and really sets her off, and she blows up on Xavier, asking like, did you know what they was using to as far as like the mutant stem cells? Do you know where they come from? Did you know? It's like Xavier doesn't know what she's talking about. She's not elaborating at all. And so later on, Short Pack asks us, okay, what's going on with you? Like, why'd you blow up like that? And finds out that somehow Dormifree got a hold of Raven's DNA and used it for their as like incubating embryos to then use as the stem cells in order to facilitate the whole rejuvenating products. And so it's understandably Raven's upset. That's like a huge violation of her own person to like an insane degree. So they end up finding the facility to try to liberate the kids, but Raven gets distracted because she finds the room where they keep all the embryos, where she intends to destroy them all. But while Short Pack finds the children, they're like under sedation, but one wakes up to just in the nick of time save his life from this guard who was about to step on him. And of course, he is just kind of like livid because Raven's supposed to have been by his side. And of course, from this moment on, him and Raven's, starting to have like a falling out, despite like them supposed to be working together. But he took after like a day goes by, and it's like, after things settle down, he tries to apologize for stepping on her, even though like, look, I was about to die, so I was a little heated, but I shouldn't have done that. They violated you to like an insane degree, and you wanted, to deal with that, and that's something that like, I can possibly understand. But as he's trying to apologize, here comes Hans and Franz, as Raven calls them, this twin strongman mutants who, when one feels pain, the other does too, but they both like are super strong, and Raven takes them both out, but ends up having to kill them, which of course upsets Short Pack. But it's like, because technically it's 4 people that Raven kills throughout this adventure. Because I was about to count just 3, but these twins will count like individuals, so that makes 4 people. Even though she's not supposed to be killing anybody while working under Xavier. Which, by the way, every time they're supposed to be doing like a debriefing with Xavier, he always like to throw into her face like, remember, I can always shut off this little device and, Homeland Security will come knocking on your door, blah, 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 you're on your own. It's like, I think she get it, Xavier. You keep drumming it up every chance you get. Like you got a brand new ride and you want to keep bringing it up every time you see your friends. And this is, like Xavier, snaps at people, more so Raven, but it's like Xavier was supposed to be sure, you don't have any reason to trust Raven. You don't even have any reason to like her. But at the very least, you will have to treat her like, for lack of a better word, a human being. Because you're just, you're just a tool to me kind of attitude. Even though he's not outwardly saying it, but he's kind of like, by body language or not so in many words saying it. Like, you're just disposable to me because of the crap that you pull. So over the years with my X-Men and me, like I really do not like you. So it's like, it's like whatever, but it's still like you gotta. Xavier's always been the type of guy from growing up, always been the one that's like, because I remember from that episode from the 90s X-Men show from the final season where it's like Juggernaut is sick and needs to try to get the powers of the Crimson Band of Sidorak back to him, otherwise he'll die. And then, Juggernaut was horrible for a long time to Xavier. It's like a huge bully. But it's like he still saw him as his brother. And it's like, I'm not gonna let my brother die. And sure, he won't, personally take a life, especially not someone like Raven. But there's been moments with Xavier treating his enemies still with some bit of dignity. And it's like, there's been moments where it's like I see Xavier not exhibiting that. What's the next thing here is, they find out who orchestrated these kids kidnapping in the first place to be sold on the black market to anybody who willing to buy them, and turns out to be another mutant who Raven ends up killing too, which was be the last straw for a Short Pack, because that's not what they're supposed to be doing, because this guy has a mutant ability to hypnotize folks. They're in Prague right now, and they erase the kids' memories, so they, or at least mutants and humans. Like, he doesn't discriminate as far as that goes, but Raven ends up killing him because like the fact that you selling out your own people to be enslaved, like you're no better than the humans kind of attitude. And despite Short Pack agreeing how vile this guy is, still need to bring him for question and use as for Interpol to get information so they gather more evidence, damning evidence, so that way they can take down Dummer Farm and that lady who's running it. But that part's out the window. But he still managed to gather other information thanks to the children. But Raven still wanted to get even with this chick and ends up carving this woman's face, like, you got such a pretty face, and takes a blade and just carves the hell out of her face. This is like, kind of like a Two-Face level kind of damage. But thanks to the kids who go back to this spot where they were held up at, and as of course, Interpol is trying to inspect the spot, and it's seemingly all like hunky-dory, and look, it's like rainbows, and it's like a children's playroom. Look at all these kids, they happy and everything like that. But thanks to one of the kids using the kind of like acid powers on his fingertips, dissolves away this like fresh coat of paint to see like what it really looked like. Which, wow, y'all busted now. So, even though, Dharma, as Xavier points out, like, Dharma has like her face looks like, thanks to Mystique, because kind of had it coming, because this one's just, now her face looks like what she, probably looks like on the inside. And despite Xavier not liking the fact that, the multiple killings that Mystique has done, especially one that was probably needed for like the damning evidence to put, this woman away and all her cohorts. And since Dummerfree has like a bunch of team of lawyers, they probably won't get away. They probably won't see any kind of jail time. However, their business is, essentially crumbled. Any other business who's probably pulling the exact same stunt will probably think twice now. So, Dummerfree is pretty much like in shambles. They can't recover from this type of blowback. So now we're at the cusp, the penultimate story arc, where Shepard gets Mystique to help him out to recover this item that belongs to him. They infiltrate Hydra and ends up fighting off, Hydra members. I really love to see the use of Mystique's morphing ability here, because like being because I imagine the illustrators are having like a field day with just the way the morphing looks, because it looks like, not like body horror, but you see like the malleable skin and scalp and hair and everything like that. It looks really good. I mean, like, the art otherwise in that is okay. Like, I don't hate it. I think it's, pretty decent. But the artist is having like a field day of making sure, like, we gotta make her transformations look seamless. And, like, it's just, like, fluid. And it's very good, honestly. And the story in itself is, like, as a whole, is phenomenal. I love the narrative. This, and it's brilliant. They put it in like arcs, but they all, it's kind of like the way like the X-Men TV shows that I've been covering. It's like there's, well, I say the 90s X-Men TV show more specifically, or even like the Star Wars Clone Wars, like they all connected into this one big overarching story, but there's these little sections of personal arcs along the way, and that's what this story is doing. That each adventure with Mystique all melds together, but it's like a mini adventure going on as well. With like you learn a little bit more about Mystique and relationships and with Forge and all this other stuff. It's and the relationship she has with like Short Pack and all this stuff. Very well done. I really enjoyed this. But they break into Hydra in order to steal this pen, and Shepard admits to her, like, yeah, it's not just a pen. This is the exact same pen used by Oscar Wilde to write, like, what's the story? Because I'm familiar with Oscar Wilde, but not all his works. And they quote a lot of Oscar Wilde through this story too, which is, I think, is pretty neat if you're an Oscar Wilde fan. Lady Windermere's fan. Matter of fact, I think, because I got on Audible right now, Dorian Gray, and I'm pretty sure that was written by Oscar Wilde. Let me check here. Yeah, Oscar Wilde. It looks like there was like some kind of movie. Doesn't look like it did very good. I think it's like a fairly average film. But maybe I'll check that out for this Halloween. One second here. Cause I already got like a stockpile of stuff this year for Halloween, and I'm gonna have to. Well, luckily, like, start Halloween stuff with, into September, into October, to give me enough time to actually like cover a decent amount of stuff, considering most of those will be TV shows I gotta cover too. Anyway, despite Raven, like I said, the whole femme fatale attitude, she still low-key thought it was like the most sweetest thing in the world, and she ended up having sex with Shepard, and then agrees like she'll finally do the deed and take out Xavier. And you learn that Shurpak's working with Shepard in order to, because he's still reeling from the fact that he felt responsible for Prudence's death because he was her handler too, before Xavier gave Mystique to him. And that's why he felt like, a little bit on edge with Mystique, because Prudence and him, like, felt like he was working like a true team, and he actually eventually kind of fell in love with her. But Mystique is like not behaving the same way Prudence does, with like an actual copacetic relationship, and Mystique always going like her own way and is not following orders and things like that. And they have their little spurts of moments of camaraderie, but it's just like not working out. And Shepard comes to Shurpak, like, do you want to, revenge against the guy who took out Prudence? Well, like, work with me, we'll get this done. So Mystique and Shurpak end up, Shurpak ends up disappearing, leaving like a video for Xavier saying like, I'm going to find Steinbeck and kill him, even though we're not allowed to do so as X-Men. I can't get past the fact that he took somebody away from me that I care deeply for. And there's an image where he actually he was not too far away in like a building across the street, where he had to personally see this guy incinerate Prudence. So he's psychologically damaged at this point. So Charles sends out Mystique to go find, and Forrest to go find Shurpak, because he hasn't reported in for like weeks. And they're in Monte Carlo, where she bumps into another X-Flame, Phantom X. And Phantom X is also was part of the Weapon X program like Wolverine. So he's a considerably dangerous person in his own right, too. Not totally familiar with Phantom X. I know I looked his abilities up a long time ago, but it's escaping me. Okay. Charlie Cluster 7. Okay. Uh, Weapon 13. So you can look up his bio, but it's pretty much is like his power set. Phantom X is an artificially evolved human, an engineered mutate with 3 brains for independent parallel processing and nanoactive blood. Phantom X's primary nervous system is actually a detachable techno-organism called EVA, or EVA. After being killed, he was cloned in a way that his 3 brains each received a body, leading to the existence of Phantom X, Cluster, and Weapon 13. Later, the clones were thought to have reabsorbed back into his original body, but this was not the case. He is also a mutant. EVA, an autonomous picotech entity manifesting his primary nervous system externally, with retractable landing legs, hovering and propulsion capabilities, morphing doorways, passenger room, and a machine consciousness. He can see through EVA's point of view and can take control of her movement. However, this requires extreme concentration on part of Phantom X. Moreover, EVA can fly herself and can generate bioelectrical charges to use as weapons. Phantom X is both telepathically and symbiotically linked to EVA. As a result, whenever EVA is traumatized or injured, Phantom X experiences the same pain. Cyber Mind. Phantom X possesses a technological thought processor for a cerebellum due to his sentinel-like design. Multiple brains, misdirection, ability to misdirect another person including the use of illusions. Together, their combined consciousness can create extremely convincing illusions. Healing trance, nanoactive blood. The techno-active bodily fluids flushed throughout Phantom X's system program his consciousness mind to believe in absolutely nothing greater than himself. No love, not love, not God, not teamwork, making him the functional epitome of strength for the sake of strength. This makes him resistant to the godly influence and most conceivable forms of mind control out there, giving him the depth of will needed to push through with his mission. Body supremacy. Brain gives Phantom X minor control over his physiological state of being. This was demonstrated by how he managed to reorder his damaged physiology by utilizing a digitized variant of the Vaughan effect to essentially resurrect and modify himself after he was fatally shot in the head by Domino. A regenerative healing factor. Is not on the same level as Logan's, but still, he has some. Superhuman intelligence. Phantom X boasts an impressive analytic tactile cunning when it comes to various subjects. Items such as psychology, anatomy, mathematics, and espionage, all within his purview. Through Eva's help, he was the only one amongst a host of geniuses and weapons engineers who figured out how to rewrite the vulgar process of super empowerment after suborning a digitized copy of his formula from the pixelated mind of Hope. After dying, he gets his entire physiology reset by the enhancement process. Not only did he cut out the fatalistic neurobiophysical combustion cycle, which plagued all other subjects affected by it. Secondary nervous system. Phantom X possesses secondary internal nervous system that he can activate to prevent negative feedback from Eva, but functions are limited, allowing him to see only in black and white. Externalized nervous system. Unlike typical humans designed with their neural network on the inside, Charlie's CNS is exposed to the wider world, which vastly increases sensory range beyond the norm. Enhanced senses. Superhuman agility, enhanced strength, endurosity. His body doesn't create any scent, making it difficult for even the likes of Wolverine to track him. Skilled marksman. Weaknesses, psychological imbalance. So, get a little bit of Phantom X as a little bonus here. So she meets up with Phantom X, and of course, also gets briefly stopped by Shepard, who, for some reason, to the bewilderment of Mystique, his attitude is completely changed, where he's, been charming her for the most part and trying to be like a friend and cozying up to her. But all of a sudden, it's like, don't think just because you slept with me, you'll get off the hook. You still got your job to do, so go do it. That attitude, it's like, whoa, where the hell did this come from kind of thing. But after realizing that Shortpack is went after Steinbeck because he used the help of Phantom X to take him near where one of Steinbeck's hideouts is. But after realizing what Shortpack was going to do, because he doesn't believe Shortpack should be a killer like him. He doesn't believe in that because Shortpack is actually like a pretty good person, and so he wouldn't take him. He stopped taking him too far, and Shortpack had to go the rest of the way on his own. After realizing what Shortpack was about to do, Mystique completely gone AWOL, ditched Phantom X and Forge, on the command of Xavier. It's like, well, this is the last straw. So they, dispelled the cloaking machine, and now Homeland Security will immediately know where Mystique is. And this is where it's like, wow, you didn't even give like a moment to like, okay, consider of, that's what I'm talking about, like Xavier's kind of like brassness and like his treatment against Mystique, to the point where it's like you're not like giving her a moment to like, at the very least, like, at least attempt to like track her down and see like what's up, because clearly she knows the penalty of trying to escape or disobey or whatever like that. And just like, you can easily track her down because you relatively got like well, I wouldn't say you got a leash on her, but it's just at least try to find her and see like, okay, it's got to be a reason. She knows what's at stake if she runs from us. At the very least, we got to see like what was up, because she wouldn't do it for at least a reason. And so they just sent out like, not send out a signal, but they could pretty much like, okay, let the whole device go. So Phantom X, as she meets up with Phantom X after realizing that, trying to warn Shepard that her handler is coming after him and the Quiet Man. And of course, not, caring about the whole situation. It's like, you got a job to do. Go take out Xavier. But Mystique, knowing that Interpol is going to be on their way, she, asked for the assistance of Phantom X to do her a favor. But Phantom X, like, hey, I'll need a favor too. So they take this little side mission, which I feel is kind of like a waste of time in this story altogether. But Mystique breaks into this rich guy's house in order to steal this Spider-Man costume, which, as described here, is the same costume in the event of Spider-Man No More, where Spider-Man threw his costume in that trash and, is later picked up by, given to J. Jonah Jameson by some guy who found it. But then at some point or other, this rich guy ends up buying it and using, and have it in his little stores for his memorabilia or some stuff like that. And Phantom X doesn't really care about it. He just likes the fact that he can get his hands on things that, just because. So now he agrees to, like, assist Mystique. So she leans in to try to whisper something to him and then ends up stabbing the guy, knowing full well that that's not going to kill him. But as he seemingly kills him, because knowing that Shepard and the Quiet Man is watching her every move, she goes, eventually, Homeland Security shows up, and then in awesome action fashion, she, narrowly escapes, missile fire. And because Mystique is very durable, like you literally see her get shot, but because she can move her organs in different ways, or even in another instance where it's coming up soon, where she flattened herself, like, Mr. Fantastic, in order to avoid, heavy damage from a explosion backfire. So she is extremely durable. I mean, of course you can kill her, but you probably gotta go the extra mile, like cut off her head in order to make that stick, or at least atomize her or something like that, because that's usually the only way to, like, neutralize somebody with, especially with healing factors. Then Mystique is cornered by Shepard, who explains that he and Quiet Man has Shut Pack in this little glass case as a prisoner. It's like, go take out Xavier, otherwise we'll feed him to our dogs. So she goes to Genosha, disguised as Prudence, to let Xavier's guard down, because Xavier can't read her mind. So he's completely fooled, and she ends up narrowly stopped by Forge after make a slight cut on Xavier's chest, which sends Genosha on complete high alert. She escapes, but the Quiet Man, who turns out to be Steinbeck, who also turns out to be Prudence, who's not dead. Because, Prudence, like I said before, her mutant ability allows her to transfer her consciousness to only female. But she somehow pushed herself to, I guess, in a last-ditch desperation move, because she's about to die, she forced her mind inside her own killer, and now he's like, the killer's trying to fight back for dominance, so it's like a constant state of control. And she's seeking revenge, because Shepard turns out to be a brother, because he used the words like beloved, often to referring to the Quiet Man for some reason. But it turns out, even if she was the sister, it's like, what? you never refer to your sister as beloved. That's reserved to like a romantic type of thing. But anyway, Prudence in the body of Shepard is infuriated to the fact that because Prudence blames Xavier for what happened to her, even though you should know that he was on a mission, that there was going to be some risk. It's like 007 getting, well, that's the whole point with like, what was it, Skyfall? With Javier Bardem's character, who used to be an agent for M, getting mad about like leaving him behind kind of situation. But it's like, you're spies. There's considerable risk that you will die, and on rare occasions there will be backup. But more often than not, there's not, because it's like, what's the whole thing with like, Mission Impossible? And it's like, if you choose to accept, like, if you choose to accept, like, if you get caught, the government will deny you, that kind of thing. It's just, there is risk. But she chose the route of Javier Bardem and, once revenge against Shortpack and Xavier, and utilizing Mystique, the new spy, under their thumb in order to bring them down. So now Genosha's on high alert. Mystique had to get out of there because there's no way she can do anything with all those mutants hunting her down. She tries to go back to her hideaway, even though it's not ideal, but she want to get certain things there. And of course, here comes Rogue and Wolverine, already sitting in her, very like melodramatic, just like with the lights turn off and they gotta dramatically turn it on and show that they're sitting there in her house. And of course, Rogue, at this point in time, up until, well, even to some extent today, but not as much as like it was back in the day, where she just like does not like Mystique, doesn't even consider her as like her mother at all whatsoever. It was no, excuse or anything like that, because the fact that you try to take out Xavier, that's like, ooh, no. There's no words at this point. It's like, Wolverine's just like, we wanted to bring you in, but trust and believe, if you give us any pushback, we have no problem taking you out right here and now. But she managed to, like, because Rogue is pretty much heated, steals Wolverine's like mutant ability and his bone claws, and tries to savagely try to maul Mystique. But Mystique manages to set off some kind of hidden explosives to make her escape. But with before that, she gives like Rogue a like some level of warning, because she still consider her her daughter. It's like, just hold on to Wolverine as tightly as you can, Rogue, and sets off the explosion, knowing that utilizing Wolverine's healing factor will keep her safe. She jumps out the window, flattening herself to avoid serious damage. Then, thanks to Phantomax, who utilized the necklace that Shepard used to keep track of her, Shepard goes to this like a makeshift hospital room, and Phantomax set up a trap. And they cut off this guy's hand in order to break into this, because there's like a watch mechanism to like gain access to the dimension, or at least some hideaway thing the portal takes them to, where the Quiet Man sits, in order to gain access to inside to certain mechanisms. That's when she's trying to save Shortpack and trying to appeal to the woman inside, Mystique is telling Shirt Pack, don't bother, she's like out for blood at this point. And we gotta take her out, pretty much. And thanks to the Mystique being the only one with the courage to do what was necessary, takes her blade, stab Prudence, which caused like this massive light kind of releasing her spirit, but is kind of like this massive explosion that kind of blows up Shepard, not Shepard, but Steinbeck into chunks. And of course, Shepard ends up escaping from Phantomax, and there's quite a few people along the way that kind of like don't get that. Well, they get their comeuppance, but they, they don't meet their fate by Mystique like you think they would, because the lady CEO escapes. I'm pretty sure she makes some kind of return later and gets dealt with, because this is like way back in 2004 when this was written. But Shepard is he slipped away, and there's another person that kind of slipped away I'm blanking on in the earlier arcs, but it's crazy how many times certain people just slip away like the way they do. But Mystique orchestrated this whole situation, seemingly trying to kill Xavier, but that little whisper she did with Phantomax gets him to set up like a sting operation on Shepard in the first place, but also before that go and warns Forge in the nick of time, so that way she can still appear that she was going to do her job, because she was being watched, so it all gotta look real. So Forge has to come in guns blazing, and you realize what Phantomax was assisting her with, but he smashes the mech device that keeps her cloaked and tells her he doesn't want nothing to do with her at this point. She gives him one last kiss, but it turns out what he broke wasn't real. She already got the device from him that's keeping her cloaked. So now she got the Interpol off her back, so she can go about her business like she was before. But that was a pretty solid Mystique story. It's pretty good, really, really good. Like I said, it's before we get into the X-Men titles, after we wrap up, because the last solo X-Men story will be Hope Summers. After that, I want to quickly go over which solo titles was from least to worst that I went through, because honestly this is pretty up there, but I still think Gambit is at this point in time one of my favorites of X-Men solo stuff. It is really good. I love that story, and the art in there is fantastic. Everything about it is fantastic, but this is really up there. Surprisingly, I didn't think I was going to enjoy Mystique as much as I did. It's ingenious to make it like a spy type of thriller thing. I think espionage is a way to go when dealing with somebody like Mystique. But yeah, this is created by Chris Claremont. Chris Claremont, Stan Lee. There's another one I'm blanking on that did a fair amount of X-Men creations, but did a very good job with the creation of Mystique. Very fun character. Very complex one. But leave a comment below. Let me know what you think of the character of Mystique. And definitely highly recommended story. Mystique, written by Brian K. Vaughan. Very well done. So anywhere you can read it, definitely check it out. And step into the POV of Mystique and her adventures. Anyway, I will see you all in 10 10 minutes so I can go over the last season of X-Men Evolution. It's gonna be fairly short because it's only 9 episodes, but yeah, and I will be back tomorrow for more video game walkthroughs of Street Fighter 6 and Destiny 2. Well, at least maybe one or the other, because because it's Monday. So yeah, I'm not gonna be working on Wednesday, so a nice little 2 days in a row. But yeah, I'm gonna try to squeeze as much video game time in tomorrow as I can. Hopefully, I don't be dozing off, during the session. So hopefully, but anyway, I'll see you all in a little bit for the spoiler review of the final season of X-Men Evolution. Which, by the way, you guys have been like, again, so much of you guys checking out my reviews of those each of the seasons of that show. Much appreciated, and definitely look forward to, in a couple of weeks I will be getting the hot sauces from the Hot Ones show and doing like a Hot Ones challenge video. So look forward to that in a little while. And yeah, and sure. And hopefully you guys will like join me live when I do that. I'll announce when I get the hot sauces, and then when the day and time will be when I go live for all that stuff. So anyway, I'll see you all soon. Take care. And like I said, follow me on YouTube, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment, and follow me on Twitch as well if you want to join me live anytime I'm up, as well as check out my Patreon if you have any recommendations on certain reviews, whether it's comics, movies, TV shows, or just a general topic. You can just subscribe to the $1 tier. Very cheap. And yeah, see y'all later.